He says, by all of this architecture, by all of these zodiacs that are hidden in stone, in plain sight, unfortunately, or fortunately, he says, by this means, the zodiacal power of Virgo, which was called in later Masonic circles the beautiful virgin, was able to stamp her benign influence on the building of the federal city. She influenced the building of the federal city. I start off chapter 11 in my book, which is entitled The Collective Wisdom of America, the Sea Beast and Serpent Presiding at the Library of Congress. I start off with this paragraph, because this has great meaning. I write, quote, the federal system officially began on June the 15th, 1800. Numerologically interpreted as 666. Now, how did I come up with that number? Very easy. June is the 6th month of the year. The 15th, in numerology, you add the 1 and 5 together. You have the number 6. The number 1800, you do not count the zeros in occult numerology, because the 0 stands for the seed of the sun god, and that's always kept separate. So you have 18. That in itself is 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. The federal system, the Washington, D.C. city, the bureaucrats opened their offices to the public, according to the historians, on a date numerologically coded as 666. It became the new seat of government on that day for the fledgling new American public. But yet, still to come was the great statue of the goddess, astrologically Virgo, which was erected 60 years later. Again, 6. They waited 60 years. Meanwhile, the great Capitol building that they had built, the dome on it had a flat altar or pedestal. And it was without anything. There was nothing on it. I have many pictures of the Capitol building. But visitors said, well, it's missing something. There's a big flat surface right on top, right at the middle of the dome. What does that mean? And some insiders perhaps let them in on the little secret that in an astrologically and numerologically correct time would come the great goddess, Virgo. And in fact, she did, the great star goddess, because she was called the star goddess. And it was in the year 1860, again, astrologically, numerologically coded 666, 1860, that the statue that was sculpted in the nation of Italy and brought across by freighter up the Potomac River, it was hoisted with a huge crane and made of wood and brought atop the dome of the Capitol building. The Capitol building has 3 parts. It's a tripartite structure because in the great capital of the city of Rome and throughout the Etruscan cities of the Etruscan province of Italy, the Capitoline building always had 3 parts. They represented the Trinity of the ancient mystery religions. The Father God, who represented the sun, the goddess who represented both the earth and the moon, and then finally their son, the son who comes from the sex act, the holy sex act between the goddess and the god. He comes and he finally rules the whole world. The Greeks call him Apollo. The Egyptians called him Horus. He whored with his mother, and that's why they call him Horus. After his father was killed, and there's a long legend to that, he married his own mother. The gods were incestual. of Rome and Greece and Egypt and so forth. Now, when you ask the name of the great goddess atop the capital, you will not get an answer. She is simply called nebulously and hazily the Statue of Freedom. Oh yes, the goddess offers you freedom. Freedom from what? God. Freedom from the one true God. That's what the Satanists believe is freedom. Liberty to them is to be free from the shackles that they believe the God of the Bible places on mankind. So you see, friends, we have a great goddess over America. She's been repeated many times in buildings across this country, usually on top of the dome, which represents the great pregnant belly and the breast of the goddess, both. Atop the capital of the state of Texas, she stands with a star in her hand. But on at least 15 or 20 other state capitals, you will find the great goddess. But that's not all. She is in the front of federal courthouses and county courthouses, and she stands out on the lawn of buildings, and especially federal buildings and postal centers across this nation. She is the goddess of America. She stands in the harbor of New York City, that great green goddess, who is the mate and consort and mistress of the great green god that comes up from the sea. That's in front of the Library of Congress. A great green goddess is called the Statue of Liberty. There again, liberty from the true God. Now, you have to understand that it's not only the goddess and the god and the phallus of the god in the Washington Monument and the empty stone sarcophagus down in the crypt underneath the goddess. That's right. He is deposited under the goddess. Because the dome and the rotunda there, as it's called, also represents her great womb. And deep inside her womb shall come the one that they call the golden boy. But we call him the Antichrist. By the way, this golden boy is portrayed on the temple of the Mormons in Salt Lake City. He stands atop it. They gave him the name Moroni. Moroni. He was an angel, a golden angel, who came and gave the tablets to Joseph Smith to found that has all the wisdom that helped Joseph Smith to found the Mormon church. Oh, sure. The golden boy. In Winnipeg, Canada, their provincial capital, atop the dome is a great statue of the golden boy. In front of the Rockefeller building, in a fountain there, is Prometheus, another version of the golden boy at the Rockefeller Center in New York City. And by the way, the AT&T building outside of New York City in New Jersey across the river there. The AT&T building was built by architect Philip Johnson to be exactly 666 foot tall, and the statue standing at the front of it, at the top of it, is of the great golden boy with wings. And he has in his hand a thunderbolt, actually two thunderbolts, designed like the X, which was the sign of Osiris, the great sun god of Egypt. Now, I want you to understand that the Freemasons and many of the other secret societies, such as the Order of Skull and Bones, are nothing more than members of a hideous sex and religious cult. And even the streets of Washington, D.C. display their symbols, not to mention all of the statuaries and carvings and artwork at the Library of Congress, even the U.S. Supreme Court. There's a huge stone frieze on the exterior of the United States Supreme Court building of a serpent overcoming a man. A serpent wrapped around and overcoming a man. On the Capitol building, on the exterior, on the pediment, you will find goddesses as well, including the goddess Athena. Inside the National Statuary Hall of the House of Representatives, you will find another goddess, and you'll find a serpent beside her. She's the serpent goddess, of course. Now, it should be understood that the streets themselves of Washington, D.C. are laid out. They were laid out by the original designer and architect, Pierre Lafont, who was supervised by Thomas Jefferson and somewhat distant George Washington. And they're laying out in the form of a satanic pentagram star that represents the goddess. That begins right at the U.S. Capitol and fans out. And very clearly in Mysterious Monuments, I show you this satanic pentagram laid out in the street. But if you look closer in the streets of Washington, D.C., you will also see the design of the six-pointed star, the Rothschild hexagram. And in fact, if you look a little closer, you'll even find the owl of Minerva, the great owl goddess or god of the Bohemian Grove secret order. All of this in Washington, D.C. And of course, all the buildings are designed as Roman temples and Greek structures and so forth, including, by the way, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, which is designed exactly according to the model of the Pantheon, where they worshiped all of the gods in ancient city of Rome. This is the new Rome. The goddess is there. The ancient mystery religion God is there. His phallus is there. The stone sarcophagus of the coming Son is there. But in all things, I want to tell you, my friends, none of this takes us by surprise. It's prophesied in the Holy Scriptures to occur. None of it takes us by surprise. The Apostle Paul said, "For we," that is Christians, "are not ignorant of the devices of the devil."